What is the laser rating system for determining wise and prudent investing or investments? Okay. In this episode, I'm going to talk about what I call the laser rating system. LASER is an acronym that I've used for years that stands for Liquid Assets Safely Earning Returns, okay? So LASER, you'll see, comes from liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax benefits. Those are the four key elements of a prudent investment, okay? Too many financial advisors put rate of return ahead of liquidity, and that's what gets people into trouble when they lose their job or they get disabled or a recession happens or their real estate properties don't have any tenants in them and all kinds of problems, okay? They lack liquidity. And so you have to put your money into positions, investments that pass the laser test. Now, as a financial strategist for 5 decades now, I've helped thousands of Americans prepare for a comfortable retirement by eliminating the 3 big dangers that cause most retirees to outlive their money. Taxes, inflation, and market volatility. Those are the 3 dangers that cause most retirees to run out of money on the average 11 years into retirement, age 76. And most couples in retirement, one of you is still alive by then for sure. And so they're having to rely on Social Security, charity, welfare, or their children for support. Is that what you want? But you'll end up there if you continue to follow the herd, putting and keeping your money in tax-deferred IRAs or 401ks and deferring and taking RMDs. Okay, so I help people make them immune by eliminating these dangers by seizing 3 opportunities. Convert to tax-free. I would recommend that 40 to 60% of your retirement income not even show up on the front page of your 1040 tax return. It's tax-free. The IRS knows you're receiving it. It's not some loophole, but it's tax-free. It's been that way for over a century in the Internal Revenue Code. If you have your money in tax-free vehicles, it doesn't matter what taxes go up to, you're immune, okay? You link your returns to the things that inflate. Most advisors have no clue how to do this. I don't like inflation any more than anybody, but it doesn't hurt me, it helps me. I've always been able to outpace inflation. I've been around doing this since 1974. That was back in the Carter years when inflation was double-digit 10%. When inflation in the late 70s and early 80s hit 10 and 11%, I was earning on my max-funded universal life 15.5%. I've always earned a rate of return that outpaced inflation. And I did that also during COVID-19 when inflation hit 27%. Many of our clients experienced 61.33% that year, okay? You have to understand this. The third is using indexing. I'm not talking about an index mutual fund. Index mutual funds, you would have lost 40% twice on your IRAs or 401ks in the market had you been in index mutual funds. Using indexing, which is a strategy, our clients didn't lose a dime in 2001 to 2003. They didn't lose a dime in the 2008 recession. They did not lose a dime in March of 2020, okay? And they participated when the market went up. They did not lose when the market crashed. That's indexing. Those are the 3 greatest opportunities you can seize by using max-funded, okay, property structured IUL. If it's property structured, it's deemed a laser fund because it passes liquidity, safety, rate of return test with flying colors. So what are the first 3 of those key elements? What are the strengths of a property structured max-funded IUL? Liquidity, the ability to access your money when you need it. This is what gets most people into trouble, okay? This is what got Dave Ramsey into trouble back in the day when he was over-leveraged, okay? It's because so many people leverage without liquidity. That's stupidity. Look, leverage is what makes the world go round. He said, no, I don't want to leverage anymore. Well, no, I leverage, but I keep 100% liquid while I leverage. That's another topic for other videos. But you want to be able to access your money even with an electronic funds transfer or phone call if push comes to shove. And when you need the money the worst, it's the hardest to get. If your real estate has vacancies you need money, you have to borrow it back, and when you need it the worst, it's the hardest to qualify to borrow. Otherwise, you have to sell it, and you have to sell it in a down market and so forth. Real estate equity doesn't pass the liquidity test, okay? Now, you have safety, not only of the institutions, but safety of principal. The multi-trillion-dollar legal reserve insurance industry is the backbone of America and the backbone of the world. This is where banks and credit unions take your money that's on deposit in the bank, 30 to 40% of it, Tier 1 assets, and they put it into insurance companies to increase the safety by an average of 6 notches higher. The bank might be rated BBB. These insurance companies, they put their money into are rated AAA. They're increasing the safety and the rate of return. The banks in 2008 were paying less than 1% on every million. That's 10 grand. They were turning around and putting that million in insurance companies and earning 5%. That's 50 grand. How much more is 50 grand than 10 grand? Don't say 40 grand. It's 500% more. Would you hire an employee for 10 grand that made you an extra 50 grand? Would you buy a widget machine for 10 grand that made you an extra 50 grand? See, that's called a 500% return. That's a 400% profit. I know that. But it's a 500% return on employment costs. I got 5 times what the employee cost me. Does that make sense? Okay. And so I like to preserve what I set aside, my serious cash. I don't want to lose the money that I set aside for future serious goals, such as retirement. But here's my further definition. Any year that I make money, I want that to become newly protected principal. I don't want to lose in future years the money I made in previous years. That's called lock in your gains and reset annually. You can't believe how many advisors don't understand how to do that. The third strength is the rate of return. Now, there are some years you'll lock in gains tax-free of 16%, 17%, 25%, 61%, even 158%. Those don't happen year in and year out. Some years you don't lose a dime when the market crashes. You may not make anything. Zero will be your hero instead of losing 30 or 40% like a lot of Americans did in 2008. Our clients didn't lose a dime in 2008. They were cheering. Go, go. They didn't make anything maybe, but they didn't lose. The first 90 days of 2009, most of our clients locked in gains of 16% after not losing a dime, okay? So it's earning a predictable rate of return that historically has outpaced inflation. So I've been very blessed, honored in my career thus far to have authored 12 books that have all been bestsellers. And in many of my books, I have this risk-return paradigm diagram. And on this diagram, I list 16 general categories of investments, from highest risk commodities down to lowest risk, maybe equity in your personal house, okay? Now, I go through and apply these, the laser test. When we apply the liquidity test, the ability to access your money without triggering tax or a 10% penalty or having to borrow the money out and qualify for a loan or sell the property or whatever, this many fail the liquidity test, okay? When we apply the safety test, this many fail the safety test. You can lose the principal you put in there, like the stock market, you can lose, okay? When we apply the rate of return test, it's pretty cut and dried. Probably the lowest bar is you have to earn a rate of return greater than the inflation rate. You can't be rowing upstream at 3 miles an hour when the current of inflation's coming down at 9%. You're going backwards. But if you're using the banking concept, how to become your own banker, you have to earn a rate of return greater than the cost of the funds. So let's go back to my analogy. If you hire an employee for 50 grand, you should only keep employees that make you more than they cost you. If they cost you more than they make you, you got to get rid of them, okay? And so if I hire an employee for 50 grand that makes me an extra 100 grand, that's called 100% return on employment costs. I'm making twice as much as the employee costs me. If I buy a widget machine for 50 grand, I'm hoping the widget machine makes me more money than the widget machine costs me, okay? Now, that's rate of return. So you have to have a return greater than the cost of the funds or whatever. So now, we only have 3 possible survivors so far. Number 10, a very small handful of mutual funds, a very small handful of annuities. An annuity is a savings account with an insurance company. Very few would pass this, but number 12 is the most least understood and the most underutilized. It's my favorite. What is it? It's max-funded insurance. This is where you're trying to get an insurance policy where you put in the most money the IRS allows as fast as they allow, and you take the least amount of insurance the IRS will let you get away with because you're using the insurance for living, tax-free accumulation and tax-free income benefits. It's for life, not death. Most insurance agents use life insurance for death, okay? So let me use this metaphor. If you were a farmer and you had the choice of buying your seed in the springtime, and you don't have to pay tax. You get a tax break. You don't have to pay tax on what you pay for the seed, and you plant it, you irrigate, you cultivate, and in the fall, you're ready to harvest your crops. And then you agree to pay tax on what you sell your harvest for. That's a traditional IRA or 401k. You get a tax break on the seed money, but then you agree to pay tax when you go to harvest your money. Most people get duped into doing that in traditional IRAs or 401ks because they're told, oh, you'll likely be in a lower tax bracket, so keep deferring. Well, most savers are not in lower tax brackets, folks, okay? They're killing their deductions as they're deferring, and so they're almost guaranteeing they're going to be in the same or higher bracket. Because they kill their deductions, they pay off their mortgages, of course. If they sell their business to retire, they don't have those deductions anymore. The kids have moved out. If they move back in, you can't deduct them anymore. You're not contributing money to IRAs or 401ks. You don't have those deductions anymore. And Congress keeps raising taxes. Most Americans agree that taxes in the future will likely be higher. And then I ask them, then why are you continuing to postpone, delay, procrastinate, paying tax to some future perceived unknown advantage and build up an IRA or 401k account to this and then pay taxes at a higher rate? That's not smart. Okay. So that's why we teach them about strategic rollouts, which is what I cover in other videos here. I would rather just pay the tax on the seed money and enjoy the harvest without tax. Now, there's only one out of these 16 that actually has a tax-favored harvest. And that is a max-funded insurance contract. Now, you may say, well, what about a Roth? A Roth accumulates your money tax-free and allows you to access it tax-free. It was passed in 1997 because the government was hard up for tax revenue, by the way. And they needed tax revenue, and so they said, hey, there's a lot of smart people that are realizing traditional IRAs or 401ks are not smart because you're not saving tax. You're going to pay more if you're a saver. So get the taxes over and done with sooner than later. Do a rollover to a Roth and get the taxes over and done with today at today's lower rates. Well, and then so people did that. It was a step in the right direction, but I've never owned an IRA or 401k or a Roth because Roths only have two advantages. You can accumulate your money tax-free and you can access it tax-free. IUL laser funds have had those two advantages for over a century in the Internal Revenue Code under Section 72E and 7702. You can learn about those on this channel. But they have four additional advantages that Roths will never have. So why would I mess around with all the strings attached to Roths? Meaning you can only put in a certain dollar amount, a certain percent of your income, okay? If you don't use the room in a given year, you lose it. With an IUL laser fund, I can set one up to accommodate $30,000 a year or $300,000 a year. I don't have to put in $300. I can put in $30, and I can make up the other $270,000 anytime I want in the future. If I put in $300,000 and I need $200,000 back in 90 days, there's no 10% penalty. You can't touch the money in a Roth for 5 years or till you're 59 and a half without a 10% penalty and all that stuff. Roths don't use indexing. With an IUL laser fund, I can participate when the market goes up and not lose a dime when the market crashes. Roths can't do that. Roths don't blossom when you die. If I happen to die with a laser fund, I leave behind as much as double what was in there to my spouse and my kids. If I die tomorrow in an accident, every $1 million that I would have in IUL laser funds will double to about $2 million. There's not a Roth around that'll do that. And people say, how much does that cost? And I go, doesn't cost me anything. Nothing's free, but it doesn't cost me anything. It's being paid for with a minuscule portion of money that would otherwise go out the window in unnecessary tax. So there's only one that passes this laser test with flying colors. So in order to quantify this, these 4 pillars on the front of my book, Liquidity, Safety, Ready, Return, Tax Benefits, you can score any investment in America on a scale of 1 to 10 on these 4 key elements. So let's do it, okay? So when we're talking about a max-funded IUL, structured correctly, it's a laser fund. And when we talk about liquidity, on a scale of 1 to 10, it has at least an 8. You can access your money within 2 or 3 days. Most emergencies, you don't need a drive-up window at a bank. People get confused with convenience, like a drive-up window at a bank, with liquidity. No, I'm talking about liquidity, not convenience. When we talk about safety, there's hardly anything that is safer than a max-funded insurance contract in the multi-trillion-dollar legal reserve insurance industry. This is where banks and credit unions put their money for safety in case there's a run on their bank, okay? Because they can get the money quickly because it's liquid and it's safe. So it scores 9 out of 10, at least. I'm giving you the benefit. This is the lowest score they would score on a scale of 1 to 10. When it comes to rate of return, it's not a short-term get-rich-quick scheme. It's usually for long-term goals, 5 years or longer. If you're doing it for a goal 5 years down the road, it would score an 8 out of 10. If you're using it for retirement, for tax-free income that'll last, if you live to be 120, it's like a 10 out of 10. Let's just score it with 8. When we're talking about tax advantages, I've taught advanced continuing education to CPAs and tax attorneys for years. I always ask them, show me anything in the Internal Revenue Code that allows you to accumulate your money tax-free and then allow you to access that money income tax-free, and you can access that before age 59 and a half. There's no 10% penalty or anything. There's no tax. And when you ultimately die, it transfers tax-free and it blossoms. They've yet to show me any financial instrument that does that. And so as far as tax advantages, it's a perfect score of 10 out of 10. Let's add those 4 numbers up. 8 plus 9 plus 8 plus 10 equals what? 35. It's 35 out of a possible 40 points. How does that compare to other investments? If you have your money in traditional IRAs or 401ks, in the market, in mutual funds, you're going to be lucky to score between 18 to 22. Do you have your money in an annuity? Annuities only score maybe 22 out of 40. Why would you mess around with something that only scores 18 or 20 out of a possible 40? I would rather score at least 35 out of 40. And that's why I'm so passionate about passing the laser test. So if you want to learn more, you can study my book, The Laser Fund. It's been flying off of our warehouse shelves. It retails for $20 to $60 on Amazon. If you buy it on Amazon, thank you. But I'll gift you a copy free. You simply go to laserfund.com or click on the link below. I require a little bit of skin in the game, okay? And so you contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I cover the rest of that, and then I'll pay for the book. I will fire out a hard copy of this to you via priority mail. Now, if you like to listen and learn or watch and learn, you can invest in those formats too. While you're in there claiming your free copy, you can register for a free educational webinar that we teach on a weekly basis. You can even schedule an appointment, no cost, no obligation, with an IUL professional that I have mentored, and they can show you how a laser fund done properly, structured correctly, may work in your particular set of circumstances, okay? There's no cost or obligation for doing that, but you want to make sure if you're thinking about it that it's done right. Claim your free copy of the book. This site is 200 pages, 14 chapters with all the charts and graphs if you're a left brain learner. If you're more of a right brain learner, you learn more by stories and examples, you just flip this book over to this one. And this has about 100 pages, 12 chapters, 62 actual client stories, okay? If you want to use your whole brain, left brain and right brain, read both books, okay? So this is about you, not me, and your brighter future. And make sure your serious cash passes the laser test with the highest score possible.